I heard on social media that Ross Merriam is on the just listen to Todd Anderson about Reclamation decks train and also has not lost a match on the weekend.
Neither is McVety. One of those is going to have to give. But
Ooh.
an impressive stuff there. I don't mind it also, these decks that are full of Shivan Fires, Fiery Cannonades. I don't think he has Shock, so maybe not too much removal.
Shivan Fire counts as a shock.
I was wondering if he had all of them.
Oh, sure. So the big draw here is that deck is able to just skip ahead so far on mana that it actually is much faster than it looks on paper, and cranking out a fast Niv Mizzet is a way to mop up a bunch of small creatures.
Yeah, I like the Reclamation deck. The games that has Growth Spiral versus the games that doesn't feel pretty different. But the games that has Growth Spiral, it feels like it could beat anything in the field.
Absolutely.
Jim Davis taking a mulligan to 6. In this kind of matchup, especially on the Tron side, I don't feel like that matters much.
No, not really. The Tron decks in particular tend to mulligan a bunch anyway because your whole strategy is play 3 Tron lands and then start playing big things. And as long as you can do that, it doesn't matter how many cards as long as you have the 3 Tron lands and the big thing. So you could theoretically see Jim go down to 3-4 cards and still end up just blowing Elenbogen out of the water.
Jim, I'm going to try for a 6 here. You don't expect this matchup to last too long.
No, absolutely not. It's one where Elenbogen really wants to try and kill Davis quickly, and Davis isn't exactly interacting very much. His cards kind of win or they don't.
Andrew on the play, no turn 1 plays. We set over to Jim's side, starts on Urza's Mine. A power plant in hand as well. Oh, he has Natural Tron and a Karn in the opener. Well,
this is how you know Davis is a great Tron player.
Yeah, when you just... I like it when your Tron opponent just starts on Tron Piece Go, Tron Piece Go. You just look at them, sigh. Like, yeah, I know how this is going to end.
Oh, yeah.
You kept it.
When your opponent mulligans and scries top and goes Tron Piece Go, you just have this... yeah.
You're hoping the next turn is Forest Sylvan Scrying. That's like best case scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
Thing in the Ice for Andrew. That actually is one of his faster starts.
That's true. It's actually one of the ways to get past a Worm Coil engine as well. 2 Tron pieces. Can you just hear the Jaws theme?
Yeah, Andrew. And Andrew knows he has 2 Grand Prix top 8s both with Tron. So he's been on the other side of this one too. If you're looking for, does Andrew have the read that he's about to be Natural Karn? The answer is yes.
Oh yeah, and the second copy of Thing in the Ice is the easiest way to foil that Karn as well. Because before, Davis could have just played a Karn, minused it on Thing in the Ice, and even if the Karn died to a bolt, relied on the fact that Elenbogen's deck is a little threat light.
I'm interested to see whether or not Jim takes the line of Karning a land here to try to slow Andrew down.
It's definitely between that or just playing the Worm Coil engine, but at this point, you kind of assume that you're going to have to answer both of these Thing in the Ices eventually, so he'll likely go after a creature and cross his fingers.
Here is Karn. He does exile one of the 2 copies of Thing in the Ice. Jim has an Oblivion Stone and another Tron piece in his hand, so he'll be able to make that next turn. But by bringing his Karn down to 3, something just like Land and Arclight Phoenix actually plays.
That does it. A Bolt does it. There are a ton of ways that this Karn is dying. Jim has more or less accepted that this is a 7-mana Vindicate.
Karn is just it's just a mid-range play. It's just your 3-drop.
In a lot of ways, Tron is kind of just a mid-range deck, except it's playing...
really good mid-range cards.
We'll call it a big-range deck.
Ooh, I like it. Lightning Bolt. We'll finish off the Planeswalker. Thing in the Ice thaws down to 3 counters. Andrew has picked up a good amount of lands in the last turn. See, 2 more in his hand. It's 4 cards in hand.
And if Jim knew that Elenbogen was spell light, there's even a case for just playing Karn and rolling up.
Plus? Ooh.
All right.
That's a beating.
Because Elenbogen only had 4 cards in his hand at that point, so he just is basically saying, you know what, if you've 4 1-drop spells or something, a Manamorphose and 3 1-drops, you got it. Show me.
Land and pass. And right on time, Jim draws Ugin.
Ooh, that card is very hard for the Izzet Phoenix deck to beat.
Yeah, once that one is on the battlefield, it has a lot of loyalties just left behind.
Yeah, even exiling this Thing in the Ice here is going to leave 5 loyalty on Ugin.
Yeah.
That is more than a single Arclight Phoenix is able to deal with, and Davis can pretty comfortably assume that Elenbogen doesn't have any spells.
Now, what do you make of this? Jim he decides to go for O-Stone instead here. He has enough mana to crack it.
The idea is that Elenbogen's not applying any kind of pressure, so Davis would rather force Elenbogen to spin his wheels in order to try and transform this thing in the ice and then destroy the thing in the ice.
Thought Scour from Andrew. Mills over a land, a Lightning Axe. Draws into another Thought Scour.
That's what this deck does. It casts spells in order to get more spells, in order to cast spells, in order to get more spells, and so on.
Another Thought Scour. No, I think it'll be interesting to see whether or not the Oblivion Stone, whether Jim will use it on end step or whether he's going to hold that up as a way to control the board here.
We do see Elenbogen holding a Manamorphose, so he is able to force action on Davis's side.
Yeah. Drew into one, going to transform, makes the 7/8. This is into there's an onboard Oblivion Stone. He draws into Arclight Phoenix.
And I like Davis holding up the Oblivion Stone here and waiting on Elenbogen to go to combat because that also catches any Arclight Phoenixes that Elenbogen were to discard with something like Faithless Leading.
Exactly. Swings, and Jim pops the Oblivion Stone. Board is clear. Andrew's tapped out. He passes. This might be time for Ugin. And it's going to be time for Wormcoil, rather.
And, you know, at the end of the day, Elenbogen's deck without something like Crackling Drake isn't going to be dealing a ton of damage to Davis.
Right.
So if Davis is at 20, he can just gain a bunch of life, and Phoenixes will have to get exposed to the Ugin.
Yeah.
And then he gets to exile them. He's trying to set up a game in which Elenbogen plays, say, 2-3 of these Phoenixes onto the battlefield, and Ugin just gets to gobble him up.
I guess the idea that Andrew would grind through a Wormcoil engine, you know, Lightning Bolt it, 2 tokens, remove both of them, that's not really in the range of this deck.
No, that's a very tall order, and even with something like Beacon Bolt, it's just not going to happen. The only real answer that we see out of Elenbogen's deck is a Set Adrift, and that's just a temporary fix.
Now, Faithless Looting flashed back for Andrew. Discarded 2 copies of Arclight Phoenix. It's the first spell of the turn. But they only attack for 6. They don't actually race Wormcoil.
Well, they do attack for 6.
Yeah. Surgical Extraction on the card. One of 3 main deck copies of Surgical Extraction for Andrew.
The jig is up.
Yeah, Ugin, Ancient Stirrings, Ancient Stirrings. No green mana source, but... Gonna go ahead and take care of the 4 cards. Andrew knows about the Ugin, so the wonder is how he plays around it.
Yeah, now he just needs to try and figure out how do I race this Wormcoil engine and also not put anything onto the battlefield. You know, these Arclight Phoenixes, returning them to the battlefield is not optional.
Right, so if Andrew casts another spell here, I guess, he can cast a spell post-combat, but...
Has he already cast 3
Surgical
spells?
Faithless Looting, I think, is all we have
Okay,
right
you're
now.
absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct.
Right, but yeah, into an Ugin, it's not very attractive to just make these Arclight Phoenix, because you can still minus the Ugin on this board. I mean, Wormcoil Engine is colorless. It also has CMC 6.
Yeah, there are just so
There's no
many
friendly
ways.
fire.
How do you race the Wormcoil engine without committing these
Yeah.
Arclight Phoenixes?
Even if Jim's hand was nothing but lands, this would be a tricky board for Andrew.
Exactly, and the fact that it's, we won't say an unbeatable card,
It's beatable,
But
it's
we'll say it nigh unbeatable.
it's a tricky one.
It's a toughie.
Now, some good news for Andrew. Teammate Max McVety takes game 1 on the standard table. As I mentioned before, it's been the order of the day so far. Neither Max nor Clay having dropped a match. 2 Lightning Bolts answers the front half of Wormcoil Engine. Tokens into play, Arclight Phoenix onto the battlefield.
And I like this line a lot because this is what makes it difficult for Davis to race in both directions. He may be still attacking for 6, but he's only gaining 3 life each time he does that.
Right.
And Elenbogen knows the only way he wins this game...
Now, hold on. Might be the problem that Jim drew another Wormcoil Engine.
What?
Yeah, his top deck was just another Wormcoil.
Don't make it weird.
Well, this will be hard. Snapcaster Mage Bolt finishes off the Ugin. Andrew had all this covered, somewhat, except, surprise, oh, he draws Walking Ballista.
It started to just go, well, I'll worm cool. Wait.
Ooh, this one might be better. Hold on.
This might just make Elenbogen dead on the battlefield.
There is 11 mana in play. We're looking at a 5/5 Walking Ballista.
Right.
So swing for 6. Andrew down to 11. Jam up to 14. Walking
Flops
Ballista.
on the table.
And says, yeah, he's not going to beat that one. And I think it's very polite that Jim didn't show that he also drew Worm Coil Engine.
Very
That was,
polite.
yeah. You don't want to make them feel too bad.
He's a man of stature. Is that the no? That's not the way to
that means
phrase
he's a
it.
large guy, right?
What? No, I don't.
Stature doesn't mean you're just like
Is
a
that
big,
what it
I think
means?
that doesn't mean you're like a. See, it
I
means you're a
thought it
tall.
means
This means
you're
you're a tall.
tall.
No, man,
Yeah.
stature's. I mean, I think that would be Andrew. I think Andrew's like 6'4".
I've been mixing up my idioms all weekend.
Yeah. Of the Delta Myers, Andrew has the most stature. Let's see. It's clear looking at their profile. It is without a doubt.
Look, I'm gonna keep messing these idioms up all weekend, and we'll burn the bridge when we get to it. Okay.
Karn is a planeswalker of stature.
Do you know Karn's tall? Have you seen Karn?
Yeah, Karn's like 9 foot something. Yeah, have you?
Where have you
not
seen Karn?
Have you not read lore? Look at like any art that Karn is on.
I don't read books.
Yeah, Karn's he's a gigantic robot. You see like the Karn cosplayers, and they're always like humongous.
Oh, so you just think all the cosplayers are canon?
Yes.
Those are I don't.
Yes.
Here,
If
you
that
hold
adds
on.
up.
If you have children, mute the stream. 3, 2, 1. Those are people in costumes, Matthias. Those are.
No, Karn.
Those are cosplay.
Karn was
They're
at
not,
the Open not that long ago.
What?
Karn was very
that
tall.
was Venerated Loxodon.
Well, Venerated Loxodon was also very tall.
We know Venerated Loxodon's tall
Venerated
because
Loxodon
it's
was
an
about
elephant.
Venerated Loxodon was about 8 feet tall, I would say.
Your eye for these things is so much better. I didn't even know what a man of stature meant, so I'm just going to default to your expertise on stature here.
Let's look at some sideboards. So, Andrew Elenbogen down a game.
Blood Moon.
Blood Moon. He's got 2 Blood Moons. Blood Moon's fine against Tron, but it's like never the KO punch you want it to be.
Right, and this is why we've seen the mono green iteration of Tron rise to the prevalence that it has. Is it's very good at just playing its lands and eventually just tapping 6 for a Worm Coil Engine.
This is one of the reasons why I talked about my favorite big mana deck right now being mono green Tron. So with Izzet Phoenix being as good as it is, something like Amulet or to a lesser degree Valakut gets Blood Moon's a pretty potent weapon against them. You play Amulet, it's pretty hard to win through a Blood Moon. But Tron, I'm not saying Blood Moon doesn't have text against them, but they can win through it pretty easily.
Exactly. There's a point where, Amulet has these coalition relics to be able to cast spells, but
and that's what they're doing, yeah.
But your Primeval Titan is kind of just a ramp spell at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, you get to play some magic through a Blood Moon, but not really.
Yeah, you literally get to squirm a little bit before you die to the flaps. But
yeah, or they make a 7/8. Then you make a Primeval Titan, and then they have a 7/8, and that stinks.
Oh, yeah.
You don't really have a way through that one.
They play their Primeval Titan, announce the trigger, put the lands into play, and you say, go on. And they go, no, that's it. That's what I got. And you just, oh.
Okay.
Okay,
yeah, that's fine.
I'm going to attack for 7. Would you like to chump block?
No. Other cards Andrew has, 2 Spell Pierce, 2 Disdainful Stroke.
Incredible, especially the Disdainful Stroke. The Spell Pierce is a little bit better when you're on the play, just because you can tag things like Expedition Map, Sylvan Scrying, and try to stunt Davis's development a little bit, but it gets much worse on the draw.
You think he'll go for all of the above, though?
On the play, I do like the Spell Pierce a little bit more. Being reactive is kind of rough when you're trying to just cast multiple spells in a turn in order to trigger your Arclight Phoenixes, but especially when you can expect Davis to have something like Grafdigger's Cage, Relic of Progenitus, etc., you're probably having to plan to lean more into Thing in the Ice as it is.
On Jim's side, I like Cage. I suppose Dismember's fine, and that's about it.
Yeah, you could probably just more of the same. You can maybe end up looking into Nature's Claim if you want to be able to tag things like Blood Moon. There's even the backdoor life gain modes on your Nature's
Yeah.
Claims, even if you're not very happy about that when it does come up. But having a not zero number of answers to Blood Moon is fine.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if he'll go for them. Answering Blood Moon's okay, but having a dead card is really not. He still has the Oblivion Stones to answer a Blood Moon, so maybe a couple of Nature's Claim, but not a whole set.
Yeah, I can agree with that. There are a lot of points where there may just be some cards that he's just less happy to have in his main deck. Like we saw Karn just didn't look very good that last
Ugin
game.
really didn't look good either.
Yeah, Ugin's one where it's very good at slamming the door, but it's not very good at catching you back up sometimes.
Yeah.
If you just end up getting tinned by the Phoenix deck out of nowhere, they can just chain some Faithless Lootings.
Ravnica Allegiance most recent Magic stat still available for order right now at Star City Games. We have a special SCG price of $94.99, and if you're a premium member, you get a discount of even more than that. That's an everyday 5% discount for all premium members. You can place an order at starcitygames.com/RNA.
That's even most of the price of a premium membership. It's like basically just makes the premium membership almost free if you're trying to get a box of Ravnica Allegiance.
I have Joseph Green to the event stage, please. Magic player Joseph Green.
So now players sideboarding, Tannen Grace also picking up a win. All on to game 2 now. That was the Delvermere against Clay Spicklemire.
Are you saying Tannen Grace won a Delvermere?
He did.
Wow. Who could have seen this coming?
This is going to be an interesting one, though. Clay is not too bad at these matchups.
But he's not the Tannen
He's
Grace.
not the Tannen Grace.
He's just a Clay Spicklemire.
Can I also add
We could probably give him the Clay Spicklemire. Can we Google him and see if he's
If
the
he's
Clay
the only one.
Yeah.
Magic players Sawyer Green and Joseph Crispy to the event stage?
Both those players, typically Grixis Delver players, have both switched over to Izzet Delver for this event.
Yeah, and a lot of that just comes back to the fact that it's a little bit more consistent than Grixis Delver is right now. The things that Grixis gives you are not things that are worth the downside of being soft to things like Wasteland, Back to Basics, Blood Moon, etc. Having access to Cabal Therapy doesn't matter as much if you're in the middle of dying on the battlefield. And Spicklemire is even splashing Bitter Blossom out of the board, which is one of the best cards.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Certainly in the mirror, I would not mind having that. Jim on a 5-card hand. Remember, last game he was on 6 cards.
Yeah, he had some leftovers at the end. The Ancient Stirrings
there
didn't
it.
even count.
Urza's Power Plant, Urza's Mine, Urza's Tower, Karn, Worm Coil, and something else. The 6, a fine 6-card hand.
Would you look at that? Tower Map Mine.
This deck's nice.
This deck is...
I wonder how Jim's going to play this one. He's going to have to get his sequencing really tight.
I think you lead on the mine.
Okay.
Nailed it.
He draws Karn. Okay.
You know what?
This deck, I like
I
this.
would like to predict his next couple of turns.
Okay. Well, okay, so this is turn 2. So what are we predicting?
I think Urza's Tower will make its way onto the
His
battlefield.
draw for the turn is Worm Coil Engine.
Look, you need the
This
card.
deck is so good.
You put cards in your deck to draw 'em, Matthias.
I don't know why people have to get so fancy in playing other decks. You too could just be casting these cards on turn 3. They're really good.
Slow roll the tower. Slow roll the tower. I love it.
What do you think the slow roll's about, though? Is he trying to hide some information?
Yeah, he may just be trying to bluff having something like Relic of Progenitus in his hand, or if he wants Elenbogen to think that he has a Dismember, then waiting and going, do I want to do it at sorcery speed, and kind of waiting around can make it look like he has something else in his hand.
And now we're on Elenbogen's turn. They can transform a turn 3 thing in the ice. To do that, Andrew would need the help of Manamorphose or one of his 0-mana cards, like the Surgical Extractions in the main. Now, I'm not sure he has the Surgical Extractions post-board, so his actual ability to transform on turn 3 is a bit lower than it normally is.
Right, and he also just needs to hit something like a land drop here.
He's going to shock. Now, an update, Max McVety, a 2-0 winner over Ross Merriam, keeps the undefeated streak alive. He's at 6-0.
I can't believe Max McVety found a way to win with white creatures.
Look, it's the Max McVety deck.
He is very good at winning with 1/1s for 1.
Sometimes they're red 1/1s for 1. But that's about where that's the whole game.
Oh yeah, he's just out here doing his best.
I think in Modern, the decks, yeah, I mentioned in Modern, there's not really a mono-white aggro deck, so he plays Ad Nauseam.
Blah. That's like Angel's Grace is a white 1-drop that wins the game every time.
I think in the past I've seen him on Infect.
He won an invitational
yeah.
with Infect. He was on Mono White Humans Infect for that event.
Yeah. With the Infect, you know,
Mono White
maybe
Humans
Affinity.
did the heavy lifting.
Maybe, Affinity's like Signal Pass. Vault Scourge is a 1/1 for 1, right?
That is a CMC of 2.
Yeah. That's not how that goes.
Hope of Jiriper is a 1/1 for 1.
Ooh, that's a nice card. So Andrew shocks his 3rd land and then passes the turn. Jim gets the 3rd Tron piece, draws another Wormcoil Engine. Well, time to start mashing cards, and if one of them sticks, things are good.
We know the choke point of the match.
His hand, you see Ross Merriam looking on. Jim's hand is literally just a bunch of big things.
Jim gave him this look of going, yeah, I know it's going to get countered, but look.
So interesting story here. Originally, Ross was going to be this team's Modern player. As of last night, Ross was going to be playing Izzet Arclight, the Izzet Phoenix deck in Modern, and Jim was going to be playing Temur Reclamation in Standard. Jim felt under the weather this morning and said he really didn't feel like he was up to playing Temur Reclamation in Standard at a good pace. So they last minute switched so that Jim could play Tron today.
I got to be honest with you, I have a ton of respect for that.
To just call your own number that way?
Going to your friends and being like, look, you know what? I know y'all trust me, but I just don't think I'm going to play very good Magic today. I would be more comfortable if I did this.
Disdainful Stroke takes care of the 1st Wormcoil Engine.
Ooh, Thought Scour, putting Arclight Phoenix in the graveyard. This is the way that Elenbogen tries to win the match.
Manamorpho starting from Andrew. He does also appear to have a Thought Scour in his hand. This should be able to make it to 3 spells.
Oh yeah, another Manamorphose hiding out up there.
So he already just has it locked in.
Cake.
1 Manamorphose. Gonna fire off a 2nd one. That will transform. Thing in the ice to Awoken Horror. Andrew will get a 7/8 here. Draws into Opt. So his choice of ways to get that Arclight back, he'll go for Opt.
He's just leaving that red mana on the pool, trying to find a Faithless Looting here.
Okay. Do you think he goes for a 4th spell to try to Thought Scour to mill 1, or do you save those to reload in case there's a no stone?
It may just be that you end up trying to reload.
Wait, never mind. There's a Grafdigger's Cage in play. Hold on. That doesn't matter.
He does have an Arclight in his hand.
Okay. I was like... Scries to the bottom and draws. Still gets to transform the thing in the ice. I guess he'd have to find an Abrade here. Something like that.
The horror has been awoken.
There we go. 7 damage in. Andrew plays another land and passes.
And there's a not zero chance we see Ancient Grudge out of Elenbogen as well, because that's one of the best ways to mop up a Wormcoil Engine. He could have considered bringing that card in out of his sideboard.
On Jim's side, he draws a Forest. Sylvan Scrying, Forest, Wormcoil Engine, Karn is the hand. Not too bad.
You know it's a better 6/6 than Primeval Titan against a 7/8?
Wormcoil Engine.
Wormcoil Engine.
Yeah. And you see Ross and him kind of discussing whether or not he wants to. He could Scry and Wormcoil, or he could make Karn. Looks like he's going to go for the Scrying plus Wormcoil. Imagine we're going to see a Sanctum of Ugin here to kind of keep the ball rolling.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's just the thing that we'll end up finding an Ulamog after that.
That is what Jim gets. There's 1 colorless mana floating, 5 more at the ready.
And a lot of the things Davis is trying to do is just check boxes, so to speak, where you go, all right, I could lose to this. Let's turn that off. So we use Grafdigger's Cage to hurt the Phoenixes in that way. All right, I could lose to the Awoken Horror. Let's play this creature here that gets in the way, check that box off, and so on.
Yeah, Tron does this thing where his cards are so powerful, whereas instead of trying to think of how he's going to win the game, it does him better to think of how to not lose, and just over time, if he casts enough cards, he'll certainly start winning. His cards are just, they're 10 and 7 mana things. They do a lot.
Exactly. Elenbogen only actually has 10 things that deal damage in his deck outside of bolts.
Right. So back to Andrew we go, now facing down a Wormcoil Engine. And it's going to be Serum Visions. Another, maybe Disdainful Stroke on top here. I have to think that's the type of card Andrew wants. Now, it doesn't help him regain control of the board.
Right. There's a spot where he's probably going to be forced into a spot where he trades this Awoken Horror for a Wormcoil Engine and then just has to beat the Worm tokens and hope to fade whatever else Davis has.
Second Serum Visions from Andrew actually draws the Disdainful Stroke. So he's going to manage to stay alive here. But the question is what the way forward looks like.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem, where even if he's staying alive, not dying is not the same thing as getting closer to winning.
Both scryed to the bottom off Serum Visions. Still looking for help on Andrew's side. That's 6/6.
Is that a Keranos?
Just as threatening. Let's check what he has in the sideboard.
He has Keranos in his sideboard.
Talking with Andrew, they said the options of cards out of the going big out of the sideboard, out of Visit Phoenix, Keranos, Ralzeric, Jace, and Chandra are generally the 4 you see. They'll see them play one of those cards. And yeah, Andrew says Keranos.
Big fan of Keranos. Not to go off on too much of a tangent there. This is just an odd matchup for it.
Talked with Dylan Hand. He managed to attack with a Keranos this weekend. Crackling Drake is very devoted to the God of Storms.
Oh my.
Yeah. And Andrew fifth land and passes. Kurt Davis draws Expedition Map. The hard thing on Andrew's side is even with this Disdainful Stroke, even if it counters the Karn,
You still get a Sanctum-Avugen.
yeah, it's still... There's just more stuff coming. And then that gets an Ulamog, and then it doesn't matter if you counter the Ulamog.
Exactly. It's just there's a point where what are you doing that matters anymore? Speak of the devil.
7 mana, here's Karn. Sacrifice Sanctum-Avugen. I mean, this should get the Disdainful Stroke. But that means we are 2 turns away, possibly 1 turn away from an Ulamog.
Right, and what do? Let this resolve in exile your Awoken Horror? No.
No, I don't think you can do that. And Jim's actually going to take a more subdued line here. Rather than getting the Ulamog, he decides just another Wormcoil's better.
Yeah, Elenbogen can't beat 1 Wormcoil. And it's better than 1 Wormcoil?
2,
2
3. This is the third one, right? The first one got countered?
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Look,
a lot
it's
of
2
them.
on the battlefield. That's all that Davis really cares about. If you're pretty far away from casting your Ulamog anyway, you just want to make sure you don't give Elenbogen any breathing room, because the Phoenix deck does have to spend a good amount of its resources just spinning its wheels digging to things.
Right.
And every turn that you force Elenbogen to hold up counterspell mana is a turn that Elenbogen doesn't actually get to find what he needs to pull ahead in this game.
Just that huge mana advantage on Jim's side. At 13.
Well, Elenbogen does have more lands than Davis.
Yeah, that is the mana advantage. Those words mean the same thing, right? Yeah, Jim decides to attack.
All right, show me.
Having seen Jim get another Wormcoil, can't imagine Andrew's going to trade. Andrew goes to 11, Jim up to 19.
And this is a spot where if you're on Davis's side of the table, you don't want to just have the 2 creatures stare at each other forever. It's profitable for you to attack each turn with this Wormcoil Engine.
Right.
Because you're at least putting Elenbogen way closer to death, and you're only getting a little closer since you only net lose 1 life each attack.
Expedition Map from Jim. Both players know his last card is that second Wormcoil. Andrew has about 2 turns to figure out a way to deal with this. if he has one at all. Fetches up a Breeding Pool.
There's that Ancient Grudge land.
And the one of Grudge out of the sideboard. Grafdigger's Cage, however, still does work there. Andrew would only get 1/2 of the Ancient Grudge.
It looks like Elenbogen also has an Engineered Explosives, which he may have brought in since it mops up Worm Coil tokens pretty well. That's a way to get the Grafdigger's Cage off of the battlefield and maybe unlock the Phoenixes that he has in his graveyard. That's not going to do a ton on the short term, but it is probably one of the boxes he needs to check on the long term.
Andrew draws Faithless Looting, 4 cards in hand. You mentioned no copies of Ceremonious Rejection. I mean, Andrew still does have counter magic, and it's been pretty good this game. But
yeah, Disdainful Strokes have killed Worm Coil and Karn.
Remember, this was a mull to 5 for Jim.
Yeah, and that's just what the Mono Green Tron does.
And things tying up in the Delvermere in Legacy. Clay Spicklemire takes game 2, and the way this is going, it looks like that might come down to a game 3.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one that Davis has a fairly commanding position in, and honestly, Spicklemire and Grace are both incredible at what they do.
And since Spicklemire and McVety have been the backbone of this team so far today, looking to keep the ball going.
Look, sometimes you just got to show up and be a warm body for your teammates. And there's nothing wrong with that.
The last team event I played, my teammates didn't go XO because I wasn't teaming with McVety and Spicklemire, but they both either won their match or both lost their match every round of both days. And so at some point in the second day, I just remember being like, did I need to show up? So they're like, we're X4 or whatever. So I'm not saying like, but my result has never factored into any match results. And you get to this weird place.
I'm envious. The last time I played a team tournament in Philly last year, every single round came down to my deck because
your teammates always split?
Yeah, Jadine and Aaron Barrich both kept splitting.
That's so stressful.
Yeah. Oh, you're telling me.
Yeah. I think I missed a prime opportunity to, like, register a homebrew. Right?
I can't believe I didn't bring my Lost in the Woods deck.
Yeah, just, it wouldn't have even hurt us. Wormcoil swings again. Now, Andrew did find another thing in the ice, which if any card is going to get him back into this, it feels like that's one that could do it.
Yeah, he just chains several cantrips in a row, and all of a sudden cracks in for 14, and Jim just has to take a turn off recasting Wormcoil Engines, which would give Elenbogen a window to just bolt him out.
Question from my side, if Jim can get up to 12 mana, that's going to make this harder. If Jim can get a point where he can recast both Wormcoil Engines immediately after the transform.
Well, that doesn't matter as much if,
Andrew says all the burn?
Yeah, what if Elenbogen does it right now and just casts 4 cantrips and then untaps and double bolts Jim?
Then it will work.
Or
then
hard
nothing
casts
matters.
an Arclight Phoenix. There are all kinds of ways or combinations of cards that could sneak out a win here.
Let's see if Andrew can do it. Okay, he's got a line. It's a lot of things are going to have to go right, but it's there.
Yeah, you got to play to these percentage points, and this is why the Arclight Phoenix deck is so good, is despite being behind the whole game, it has an avenue to steal it.
So he starts with Manamorphose. That's spell 1, makes red and blue. Removes. There's 3 counters still remaining on Thing in the Ice. Draws into a land. Is that the end of the road? I see 2 lands. Is it 3?
Is it?
Yeah,
is it
might.
3?
Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it Phoenix? Is it dead? And is it going to the third one? It is. Handshake there. Jim Davis takes the win 2-0. And speaking of Is It, we got only Is It left. It's going to be Tannen Grace and Clay Spicklemire.
So do you think Is It is the only deck to play? Let's go back to our pregame talk.
No. This matchup seems fine.
Oh, yeah. Mono Green Tron is the type of deck that everyone loves to make fun of, and then their opponent plays a turn 3 Karn and their stomach drops.
So as much as I do like playing Primeval Titan decks, and I do, and I play them because I think they're great and fun, I've never been completely sold that they're not just bad versions of Tron.
Yeah, Tron is just so consistent. You can mulligan to 4 cards. That was a mull to 5, and it did not look
The first game
close.
was a mull to 6, and the second was a mull to 5.
Yeah, did that game look like a mull to 5?
Yeah, Tron is a really impressive big mana deck. And I think it gets a lot of a bad reputation because a lot of people your top pro players don't always want to play it, or sometimes when you lose, it's a little out of your control. But but the numbers are there. The deck is good.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a point where even a bunch of the top players, there were a bunch of big teams at the most recent Modern Mythic Championship that were just playing Tron because the numbers are there.
It's just that good. All right, well, here's one. Game 3, Tannen, Grayson, Clay, Spicklemire. This is to move to 6-0. It's the Izzet Delver Mirror in Game 3. Tannen starting off with Island and Ponder. Both players on 7 cards here for the decider. 2 copies of Bitter Blossom in Tannen's sideboard.
Also
Same
Clay's.
with Clay's. Okay, so we are looking at a true mirror here. It looks like it.
Is this a 75-card mirror?
I believe so. Yeah, this might be a... Which, you know what, in this kind of matchup, that's what I'd want it to be. If it's going to be a 72-card Delver Mirror, I'd rather it be a 75.
Right.
Let's have it come down to the skill.
Let's do this.
Even matching land arts. It looks like... No, they're not
Those
matching.
are not
They're not
matching.
matching. I thought they were just like different... Right.
I wasn't going to say
Delmark-
anything because they're close.
They're close. They're not matching. Revised lands... Or alpha lands, beta lands, have a couple different arts that are similar.
They're all very close. Look, Mark Poole likes that island, and he's going to draw that island at different times of day, and you're going to like it.
I mean, I do, so fair enough.
Exactly.
Well played. Let me go over to Tannen's side. 2 more Ponders and a Delver. First non-basic exposed here in Volcanic Island.
And we see a bunch of lands in Tannen's hand, so he's honestly pretty pointedly exposing this.
Then he goes, so he then exposes Ponder to a possible daze. I don't think that's going to earn the daze.
Right, and this is a spot where you're very okay if Spicklemire dazes and then also wastelands, because that means that he just doesn't have anything on the battlefield against this Delver of Secrets.
Tannen's top cards are a Fetch Land, a Pyroblast, and an Abrade. I think both red cards are things Tannen's interested in. I don't know about the Fetch Land.
The Fetch Land's a little bit closer. It is a way to shuffle your deck later on and make your other cantrips better. Ideally, you wouldn't have to draw it, but the other cards are so good that it's pretty hard to just throw this back.
Yeah, I don't think he has another Fetch Land in his hand, so he may end up drawing it anyway. He draws one of the 2 red cards and sets the other one up to transform that Delver.
Yeah, and this is a spot where, you could shuffle it back, but what are the odds the top 3 cards of your deck in a random deck don't have a land in them? You might as well just lock in the good cards and your Delver transformation.
Ponder from Clay.
I can't believe Clay only owned less than 4 Ponders when he met Dan Scott.
Oh, interesting. Only one of them signed?
Right.
At least one signed.
That might be a foil Ponder that's unsigned, though, so maybe that one was just gotten later. That makes a little more sense.
Do you have a Ponder preference?
The flavor text on the original one is my favorite flavor text in the game, but I love the artwork from Dan Scott, so it's kind of a toss-up for me.
I have 2 of them I play. I have this one in the foil set, and then I have the Spirit Bomb player reward ones.
Ooh,
Texas
that
ones.
one's nice. That one's nice.
Clay ponders, and instead of making a threat, he wastes away the volcanic island. But here, Tannen getting rewarded now for just being, keeping things low to the ground, being on the play. He does get to transform that Delver into Insectile Aberration, and while the board looks even, Tannen has a 3-2.
And all of a sudden, look how good his hand looks against someone trying to wasteland their opponent out. Right?
Yeah.
Tannen Grace has this Insectile Aberration, but he has an island and he just has a mountain in his hand. He can cast everything.
So Tannen's hand looks pretty good here. He has a wasteland and basic mountain, basic islands you mentioned, so you can't really... On the mana front, Tannen's got it all. He's got a 3-2 right now, and he also on the answers front is really well set up. Pyroblast and Abrade. The weakness I would see is if Clay just can tag a kill spell on the Insectile Aberration, Tannen does not recover very well from there.
Right, and I believe there's a Grim Lavamancer hiding out in Spicklemire's hand, but does he have a red source?
Right. And if it's a non-basic red source, it's one time only.
It is not long for this world, that's for sure. And it looks like Flooded Strand is the fetch land hiding out in Spicklemire's hand, which cannot fetch a basic mountain.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Taking 3 right now. Clay also looks like Pyroblast. Maybe 2 Pyroblasts and a Grim Lavamancer. Also has a Terramander and a Brainstorm in hand. Starts on Flooded Strand here. He can't take too many hits off this Insectile Aberration. And he's going to pass. Yeah, it does not have a way to find a basic red source. Here's an attack, and Clay really respecting his mana. He's going to take another hit off that Insectile Aberration. Just does not want to get wastelanded here.
Right, and the plan here on Spicklemire's side is basically that he wants to get at least 2 uses out of whatever red source he ends up fetching up.
Yeah, and on Tannen's credit, he did end up drawing that fetch land. The draw for the turn was that 3rd card down we'd seen from the Ponder early on. So he may not make the wasteland this turn. He'll start with a Ponder. Right now tapped off blue. That's an opportunity for Clay if he wants to try to make a spell here.
Exactly, and this is kind of Grace saying, do you have a Pyroblast? Do it. Right now.
Daze, Snapcaster, Preordain. I have to think those are being left on top.
Those are just 3 spells. They feel so good to have right here.
Especially since Tannen's a bit long on lands.
Right, you don't even really want to shuffle those away with a Scalding Tarn for the most part.
No. See what order he puts them in. That's what he's wondering. Looks like he's going to... Preordain's at the bottom. So he's going to pick up the Daze. Next turn will be Snapcaster. And now on end step, Tannen makes the Scalding Tarn, and we see from Clay that you said he wanted to spend the red mana twice. I love what he did here.
Yep.
Got the opportunity to. Here's the Volcanic Island. He's going to get to untap with it.
Yep, exactly. And now he has the ability to resolve this Grim Lavamancer.
That was well done.
Pyroblast, something to that effect. Very heads-up play from Spicklemire.
And he paid a lot for that. Remember, he took an extra Insectile Aberration hit just so he could do this.
Exactly. And, you know, one of the things that you end up trying to do in these Delver lists is just killing all of the opponent's threats anyway. Right. So if you end up with that being your plan, taking an extra shot of 3 is fine as long as Tannen doesn't find something like True Name Nemesis.
Brainstorm finds Vapor Snag, Ponder, and one more in Snapcaster Mage. But did Clay find a land? I'm not sure he did.
No, he just has this Underground Sea in his hand.
Okay, so he found a land, but it's not a fetch land, which means that Wasteland presents a problem. Now, if he has a Daze, he can always, like, make Brainstorm and Daze his own Brainstorm to protect from Wasteland. Make back, you know, you can bend that way to try to get around it, but it's not great.
Yeah, you end up still just trading a bunch of resources in exchange for this Wasteland, which is the big worry.
Underground Sea, and it's Terramander.
Grace choosing not to kill the Terramander is an interesting choice, but he's likely just respecting Daze and or Spell Pierce here.
Yeah. Yeah, you see Lightning Bolt, Abrade, Pyroblast at the front of Tannen's hand. His draw for that turn was the Snapcaster Mage. Next turn comes Preordain. So, if possible, he'd like to keep that fetch land as it is. And here's Bolt. Lightning Bolt on Terramander. That'll just work. Wasteland follow-up, and Tannen does cut Clay off his red source, and that's going to stay that way for a couple turns. This is a rough spot for Clay.
Right, Clay's just going to have to fire off a Ponder here and hope to spike a red source.
But the board's clear, right? No threats on either side.
That's true. This is a spot where Tannen is just kind of getting his cards to line up a little bit better and does have a mana advantage, which means that all of his cards are going to resolve against the soft remission that these decks play.
Ponder from Clay finds Flooded Strand. So there's his red source. He gets to reset the deck. Good Ponder. Keeps things fairly even between the players. Now we do have an eye. That clock is correct in the middle. Just under 7 minutes remaining.
Player's going to have to do something to get this game over one way or another in order to avoid a draw. Draws are so rough on the first day of these events.
Yeah, so we know there's a Snapcaster in Tannen's hand. It looks like Clay has either a Snapcaster or that could be a True Name Nemesis. May have both here. But as far as reestablishing some damage, Board is clear. Clay took some extra damage. He's at 12 to Tannen's 19.
Right, and we see both players holding their Pyroblast for the most part because they are so afraid of True Name Nemesis. There's no way to get that off the battlefield once it is resolved.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole game changes when one player gets one into play. So
4 p.m. Modern Challenge players, your round 2 pairings are making their way to the pairings boards.
Hey, that one's the same artwork.
Here we go. Here's Preordained from Tannen. Top cards, Spell Pierce and Young Pyromancer.
Hello, nurse.
Yeah, I would go, that seems fine. Seems better than fine. Now, to cast Young Pyromancer, you actually have to take down Pyroblast here.
That's true. That's something that he may not be willing to do in this particular situation.
Yeah, if that's the case, I wonder if he's going to keep it.
He did hold a Daze before, and if you think that Spicklemire is just choked on land by the way that he's played, you do still have the ability to Daze a True Name Nemesis as long as Spicklemire doesn't find another mana source.
You're right. It could work. It's hard to bank your strategy on it.
It is quite hard, but the big draw here is basically that if you did that, you could just theoretically go around a True Name Nemesis.
Both bottom on that, Spell Pierce and Young Pyromancer. Aggressive.
Not going to take it down. Here, Tannen's also just drawing towards his own True Name Nemesis in hopes of resolving it.
He does find another land, but it's not another red source. It's his Underground Sea. Tannen's hand, Snapcaster, Pyroblast. Clay just says go. Tannen picks up another copy of Daze. So Daze, Pyroblast, Snapcaster, and then one other red card. I believe it's an Abrade.
Right, and this is the spot where these players don't really want to commit anything to the battlefield.
Yeah. End step Snapcaster Mage from Clay. See if it resolves. It does. Tannen's just not going to take down that Pyroblast, and Clay will snap a Brainstorm. A pretty big win for Spicklemire. And Tannen's saying, hold on. You just tapped out for the Brainstorm. I have responses.
Exactly. There are a couple Dazes hiding out in Tannen's hand here. It's pretty hard to justify not firing off either of them.
And he's going to just hardcast the Daze to take care of the Brainstorm. So Clay gets a 2-1, but can't have an extra card to go with it.
Yeah, and it's discarding a card that, from Grace's side of the battlefield, it kind of has diminishing returns as the game continues. And if they're both playing this draw-go game, getting any value out of your Dazes is a win.
Yeah, he countered something, which is a win. And he passed back. Clay with plenty more cards in hand. Now Tannen has a mana advantage, but that's about it right now. And I do like the way that Spicklemire has played this game. It has felt like he was playing from behind for most of it, but I'm not sure that's the case anymore.
It's still very close here. Grace has not really found anything that just cleanly answers this Snapcaster Mage. But he does have the chance to use that Abrade we saw earlier off of the Delver of Secrets transformation.
And a Wasteland from Tannen. That's huge because it knocks Clay back off red mana. And if Tannen now can find something like a True Name Nemesis, he can just go for it.
Right, and that's a spot where Clay had the ability to just try the Daze trick, but he didn't.
Brainstorm from Clay trying to refine the red source, but Tannen has held onto a Spell Pierce for the mana denial. It works. 7-card hand for Clay, but he just has to pass. Now here's Tannen's opportunity. He doesn't have the True Name yet. He's going to go for a Brainstorm to try to set one up.
Ooh, I believe he found it.
Okay, it was Volcanic Island, Lightning Bolt. It's a blue card. You might be right. It is True Name Nemesis.
It's likely that he ends up wanting to wait a turn just to respect Daze.
Well, he hasn't made a land drop this turn. If he keeps the Volcanic Island, he can go for it through a Daze.
Oh, right, and he has Pyroblast Daze in hand, it looks like.
Yeah, there's no way that Clay will win a counter war through that. Now, he may want to respect a True Name on the way back, but here is a play from Tannen's True Name Nemesis. It resolves. Tannen is ahead in the life total race, and now with True Name on the board, it's a really tough spot for Clay.
Right, this is a spot where it looks like Tannen's down a bunch of cards, but that's mostly just
because
Spicklemire can't cast anything, and this True Name Nemesis, cards don't matter anymore.
Right.
All that matters is life totals.
Spicklemire discards to hand size. Does not find land, does not find the red source. It's the Grim Lavamancer. into the graveyard. Tannen attacks in for 3 more. Clay to 9.
Cannot attack fast enough.
No, there's just no way. Clay draws into True Name Nemesis, but he's discarding cards. The mana denial strategy from Tannen appearing to have worked here, down to 6. He's got 1 Lightning Bolt in hand. It's 1 more drop for Spicklemire, and he lays out the cards. The first loss for Clay this weekend comes again in a real dogfight of a matchup against Tannen Grace, and the Team BCW, Grace, Davis, and Merriam keep it going and improve to 6-0.
And I want to look back at how that game